Sweet. Okay. Let's get going. Hopefully, the dropped frames thing that we have had over the last couple of weeks is going to resolve itself today. It does seem to be going down into like the yellow zone, but it's not. Well, no, there we go, dropping frames. I just don't know why it does that. I did reset my router. I did change some settings in OBS, and here we fucking are. So, yeah, and I guess that means that this stream isn't getting monetized. Well, that doesn't really matter. Yeah, so I'm just gonna keep going. It's better so far, it seems. It's not as bad. It's only been 22 frames so far. That's about 1%, so that's not that bad. We're gonna do the boss fights, or at least like a layout of the boss fight for this section. After which we'll have to like go through and do this a couple of times and like tweak things and start like actually like kind of like balancing this a little bit. It should definitely be balanced in favor of the like player. It shouldn't be like brutally difficult or anything. Matter of fact, I would prefer it if it was actually kind of easy, because it just needs to be, I've set this up a million times at this point, but it just needs to be something that is quick and kind of just like fun to play. So, after we've picked, and this needs to be offset, you know what we're going to do? You know, this is going to be a thing we do. I'm going to pull this one over a little bit so we don't everything be misaligned right from the start for this room. One thing for this room is kind of just a square. It's going to be a square, and there's going to be the boss fight in the middle. And we're going to just program a handful of attacks for him, and maybe we'll add in like rotating like defenses for him as well. So that's rotating things that you can hide behind. But it also obviously would block your bullets going at the boss fight. I've got a couple of just general ID type of things. Nothing much more than that. But it should be a like reasonably large area. So what I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to start just making this into something that resembles a square. And to do that, we'll rotate this like that direction. And let's make this just like 10k by 10k. I think that's pretty fair. If we need to make it bigger, we can make it bigger. That's actually before we start making the walls for this entire thing. Maybe it's a good idea to just fly over here real quick. Raise up this wall slightly, and super quick add in, open up like DS4 windows, because I forgot to do that before. I should just really like natively support DualSense controllers, but it's a headache to do. We'll get around to it at some point, I'm sure. So let's just see if we fly around in that general area, what that feels like. Is that going to be like particularly big? Does it need to be bigger? Does it need to be maybe smaller? I doubt it's going to need to be small, to be honest with you, but you never know. So let's just make our way over there through the outside route. I also don't know what's printing hello. It might be printing hello every single time one of those auto-firers fires. And those auto-firers probably should only fire... this actually seems pretty good for like a boss fighter, you know, I would say. Yeah, this probably... I could probably be happy with this, right? I think that's good. Maybe it's going to be a little tight, depending on how big we make the boss with its surrounding area, but I think it's a pretty decent place to start with, at least. What was I talking about? I already forgot. I don't know. I guess I'll be talking about something else then. So I have some ideas. Let's go back to that. I have some ideas for like attacks that I want them to be able to do. Like directly shooting at the player, obviously. I want them to have like a set of circular attacks. I don't remember what I was talking about. I was talking about maybe making these things only fire when you're in range. Like maybe they should run a timer and see on that timer if you're in range, like every like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, something like that. And if you're within a certain distance, they start firing. And when you leave that distance, they stop firing. That might be a good thing to do. But for now, I don't think that's like the most important thing to like concern ourselves with. So let's just keep that as an idea for the future, and we'll see what we end up like actually doing with that. Probably not that much. Unless I give this to players / put it on my Steam Deck and figure out that it actually like kills your FPS, which yeah. Again, Steam Deck is the benchmark for this game needs to run like on Steam Deck. If the game doesn't run on Steam Deck, more work needs to be done. Because if it runs on Steam Deck, it will run on like medium settings. It will run reasonably well on effectively like any gaming PC, I think. That's what I tell myself anyway, and that's why I got a Steam Deck. I also like just enjoy playing games on the Steam Deck, to be fair. Okay, with all that, we're going to also increase the like height of this dude real quick, so that we can actually like take our shortcut from under here. And we don't even need to like do this. We can just literally pretty much fly straight from here. And if we just go straight, we immediately end up in the boss fight. That's my design. Yeah, it's totally by design. I intended for that to be a thing. So let's make our twin stick boss fight, right? So where do we keep our twin stick stuff? In here. I guess we just do like the twin stick enemy, and we'll give it a different behavior tree, and that's kind of like the whole thing, isn't it? Because if we do just twin stick like boss, that essentially, if it runs a different behavior tree that just doesn't have any movement code in it and just has like a bunch of where is it? Oh, there it is. And just has a bunch of different like attacks. What the fuck? Oh, I guess that makes sense, because this is supposed to be a variable, I guess, for enemy, which is BP twin stick enemy object reference, which this one doesn't have, because it's not even the right one. So what we do instead is not make this a copy, we just make it a child, which we probably should have done to begin with. So give that a moment to delete. There we go. And then we make a child blueprint, which will be BP twin stick boss. Obviously, this is going to be a fair bit bigger, first and foremost. Where's my details panel? Can I please have my details panel? There we go, thank you. For now, we're just going to set this to be like 3 times as big. It's going to have a different mesh, at which point we'll set it back to normal. But for now, I think this is probably good. Should actually set this back to being 1 and set this in the world instead, so that we have like some context. So I think like 15. Oh, that's too much. 8 times, 6.5 times. That's pretty good. Yeah, so he'll be a fair bit bigger. I don't think I necessarily need this guy to like rotate to the player, because what I imagine is that it's going to be I don't really know what it's going to be. The thing that I imagine right now is like kind of like a circle from the top view, and from the side view it would be like something like this, right? Where there's just a set amount of cannons, probably like 16 of them or something like that. So that would be like, this would be 4, this would be 8, and then like, I don't know, is that 16? I'm going to pretend like that's 16. So that's just like 16 cannons. And it'll have like either an attack that will probably like fire in 8 directions, and then in the other 8 directions, and then 8 directions, like to like make buttons, make it a little bit more like bullet hell ish. And then it'll probably have an attack where it does just all 16 cannons, and it'll probably have an attack where it does the like cardinal 4, and then the next 4 over, next 4 over, next 4 over, like a couple of times in a row. It'll probably have an attack where it just does whichever one is closest to aiming at the player. I don't know how I'm going to do the math for that yet, but we will. ChatGPT will help with that, undoubtedly. So that's kind of what I'm thinking will be the general like layout of this guy. I haven't made a model for him yet, not even a temporary one. So maybe we can do that today as well. That would be fun, wouldn't it? We can do it just in engine. That's probably fine. Let's start with that. Just like a temporary model for him, because I think that's going to be a good place to start. And it's just going to be a cylinder with other cylinders coming out of it. But that should be all that required, and then at a later date I will go in and what bigger radius? Radius of 1,000 is actually pretty good. At a later date I'll go in and in like Blender or something like that make like an actual model for this guy. But for now I think that this is pretty good. So we create a cylinder, at which point I'm not familiar very much with the modeling tools in Unreal anymore. I like use them a little bit. We do have a mirror. Do we have like, yeah, so we can do that. Can we like mirror in 2 directions at the same time? No. So what I'm kind of thinking is we probably, it might be faster to just do this in Blender. It definitely would be faster to just do this in Blender, because I could just add a cylinder, mirror it along that axis, copy it and rotate it, join them together, copy it, rotate it, join them together, and be done. So maybe we should just open Blender, is what I'm thinking now, because this isn't not even like particularly going to be very accurate as far as like, yeah, okay, so scrap that ID, we're gonna Blender. Real quick, just in Blender, something easy. General, and this is how quickly we can do this in Blender, right? So we make a cylinder, we still make that 1,000 units, which is 10 meters in radius. Set it to a good amount of vertices, I would say. And then that feels like it's maybe too big. But that is how that adds up, right? Because Unreal units are centimeters, if I'm not mistaken. So that should add up. And then the depth, let's set that to like 5 meters or something. I might as well just, at this point, extrude along normals, inward, right, and I don't know if I can add a bevel modifier to this to just bevel everything a little bit. A little bit more maybe even, like that. Shade auto smooth. Do something with this. I don't really have like a lot of creative ideas here, to be honest with you. We're just gonna kind of like give this a bit of definition. I don't know what that's gonna do for us, but at least there's something here, I guess, kind of. All of these being beveled is probably fine. And then with that, we can add in another cylinder, which is going to be much smaller. This one's going to have a radius of, I don't know, 1 meter. Hell, I think even like lower, to be honest with you. Like, let's go with half a meter. And its depth is going to be like 2 meters for now. And then we rotate that 90 degrees. We move that on the y-axis. So it's exactly at the center point still. And then we can mold this a little bit again. I'm going to give this a bevel modifier because beveling stuff is the best. Makes everything look instantly a million times better. And it's a much nicer way of doing things than subdividing everything. Because you need that detail in like the corners, right? You don't need that detail everywhere around here. So it's only going to like actually add them around like corners. That's what I found anyway. Gives you a little less control over things in some ways maybe. But also not really, because you can still like... I've been doing a little bit more art lately, so I'm kind of like in the mindset. You still have like this bevel weight thing, right? So if you set this limit mode to weight, you can just, that's for the vertices, you can still like bevel everything to the max as much as you want to. Or not. So you actually like have a fair amount of control over what you exactly want to bevel. Which, thinking about it, is probably a good thing, because if you bevel everything all the way up, it's also technically going to bevel these. That said, if you do it by angle, it won't do that probably. So it's fine. Let's just keep it as is. This is fine. But I do want these to... kind of be out a little further, I think. Yeah, that'll be good. So then with that, we can mirror. Where does it mirror to? It's mirroring on the X, it should mirror on the Y. And then I wish there was also like a... There might actually be, hold on. We can just deform, maybe. Is there a like general, just like rotate the entire thing around? Would that be displace? That's displacing along the normals. That's not really what I want. Yeah, no, that's displacing like the individual faces of verts. I don't know if there's a convenient way to also just like make it do the same thing but rotate it 90 degrees or a variable amount of degrees. Like effectively just doing an array circularly without going through and doing like a bunch of like other stuff with like geometry nodes and that kind of shit. Because I would really like rather not go through and do geometry nodes for this right now. Because that's gonna be annoying. I missed the old menu for this stuff. But I don't think, yeah, so mirror is the best we have. I guess array itself might have some options for that these days. I haven't looked in a while, but I don't think so. I guess you can like displace it along a curve. Well, we could do that actually. That's not a bad idea. Instead of mirroring this, let's try this. This might not be a bad idea. What we could maybe do, and we're going to get to programming the AI for this guy in a moment. Okay, just give me a second. We can add in a curve that's just a circle and make that circle as big as it needs to be. We can fine-tune that in a moment. And then array, we want to have 16 of these, so 16. And then I think we can like deform a long curve and tell it to deform itself around this. Ooh, not quite. Maybe if I, hold on, if I apply transforms, no. Well, that's almost it. Yeah, not quite. All right, we're getting there. I mean, that's almost what I want. Not quite, but almost. So it's like this, but they stay the right way around. I mean, I guess we can just... Okay, so that's technically the Z direction. Moving them up and down or left and right does this. That makes sense. All right. So then all we need to do is select all, rotate 90 degrees. Oh, no. Select all, rotate, and like 90 degrees. Yeah, and then we kind of like got what we need, right? Just move it down. And then the relative offset will be... I mean, we can just check that from the top view until like these effectively line up. There we go. 16 cannons. Procedural stuff for the win. This allows me to go back in and actually like just edit this model and fine tune it and like UV unwrap it eventually and that kind of stuff instead of having to make a new model because everything is baked. So let's where am I even going to put this? Do I have like a models levels? No. Characters. Twinstick. Twinstick boss, I guess, is what we're going to call this. It's ugly, but it'll do. Let's export this stuff. I'm going to export this to this folder. Yes, that is actually correct. Let's just keep that. And we want to geometry, apply modifiers. Yes. Don't have an armature, don't have animations. That should be all. So let's see if we can Twinstick boss. Now we do want to make sure that it combines those meshes. If jagged sections with matching materials are kept separate and will get combined, that's not what I want. There is something, because if I just import this now, it's going to import it as two separate meshes, I'm like 99% sure. Yeah, so that's not what... Oh, it's actually going to be three meshes technically, because it's also importing the Bezier curve. Yeah, definitely don't want that to be a thing. I mean, I can just put them together, I guess, but I'd really rather not. There is a way to just combine these meshes while importing. I just need to figure it out. Import static meshes, convert static mesh morph targets to skeletal, combine static meshes, that's the one. So now if I import it, just combine it into one singular mesh. And there we go. Which technically is a static mesh, not a skeletal mesh now, but we'll... oh, that could be maybe annoying. That could maybe be annoying. Because how do we deal with firing these things off? Because I think we deal with that in C++ just based on... I didn't think ahead for this, if you couldn't tell. We have shoot bullet, and shoot bullet gets spawn point names. So that's just an array. I guess every time we shoot with like the boss abilities, we just have to edit that names array, which is going to be very annoying to do. But it uses that baked into the C++ code. That's well, yeah, no, it does like actually like request bullet from the pool through this and that kind of stuff. So probably should have like split that up into like 2 or 3 different functions that I can use a little bit more modularly than I did. If we were making a full game out of this, and this wasn't the end of like the coding part of this entire thing, because we're making a boss fight, I would probably refactor this right now. I won't. What we're going to do is we're just going to, whenever we shoot any bullet, we'll just make a function on like the state tree task that just like updates the array with names in it, which is going to be a bit of a pain, but I think that's going to be the easiest way to handle this from now. So let's do that, shall we? That is OBS, not Unreal. So, Twinstick boss. Skeleton mesh. Oh, but that's the thing, right? That's what I was going to look at, because it gets the socket locations from the mesh. Okay, this needs to be a skeletal mesh. Let's make this a skeletal mesh. We can do that. Convert to skeletal mesh. There we go. And now it's a skeletal mesh. So we can put it in here. In here, I mean. What? Oh, that's the skeleton. We need the skeletal mesh. So just put that in there. Horrible UVs, I know. Make this thing bigger, 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 bigger. About these big. It's probably fine if it doesn't have like very thick collision, I suppose. And then this can be just zeroed out, and that's everything that should be, I think. So why don't we have that boss there anymore? Why is it gone? Is it because it's humongous? Am I inside of it? Because I did set it to like, no, I should have seen it by now. Did I just delete it? I seem to have just deleted it. Well then, let's try again, I guess. Twinstick boss. Still could probably do with being a little larger than this. So I guess it's just this guy's location plus 500, plus 5,000 in both, right? So we just do this, and then we just do plus 5,000, and then that plus 5,000, or minus 10,000 now, and that's the exact center. I think making him a little bit bigger is probably a good idea, and also making him not stuck in the floor is probably a good idea. So let's make him like 1.25 times the size. I think that's probably pretty good. Because we're gonna add in some shields around it as well, and I'm debating whether or not I want them to be able to spawn in like basic enemies as well. I think that might be a bit too much, so we probably won't do that. But that might be a thing that we do want to do, so we'll keep it a little bit of room for that. State tree. Don't use this tree though. What we're going to do is, I guess I'll just copy it over just for good measure. State trees don't always like when you copy stuff over, so don't do that too much. But Twinstick Bossfight. State tree, Twinstick boss. And now I have to decide, how am I going to code in the patterns for these attacks? Because, like, what format makes most sense for that? Am I going to just hard code those in as separate abilities? Am I going to, like, make an ability that takes in, like, an array of names and timings for those things? Like, at begin play, just do, like, setting a bunch of timers at like 1 second, 1.2 second, 1.3 second with like the proper names to go with them or something like that to go off. Wouldn't even be at begin play. What it would do is it would effectively be like a loop where it does the function, it delays, it increments an index. And then it delays again for a certain amount of time. I do think that might be the best way to do it. But that would only, well, no, that would work quite fine. So, yeah, I think that's the way that we're going to do it. So what I want to end up doing is, I don't know why I'm writing this out because I might as well just make it. If I can just make like a, but that's not going to work. Okay, so I need to make a struct. I was going to say if I can make a map, but what I need to do is I need to make a struct. And what that struct is going to contain is it's going to contain a float and a name, or a Harry Potter scholar, whatever you like. And this is going to be on like begin play, right? Which is also BP. That's funny. It's going to delay for the amount of time for this float, and then it's going to fire from the cannon corresponding to this name. Then it's going to loop back around and delay for the next float in our array of structs, and then fire that name. If the delay for these is 0 a couple of times in a row, that should effectively mean that all of these fire at the same time. If it's 0.1 for all of these, now suddenly they are firing. At this point, it looks like I'm just writing 0, 11. Now they are firing in sequence after each other. So at that point, the only thing that I'm really like wondering is it worth like encapsulating this entire thing into an entire struct of its own as well? To like group together instant fires. So that can have just like, it wouldn't even be that. It would just be, I guess what it would be is we would have like an array. We would have a like array of structs that contain a float, and each would contain a like an array of like names, right? So I would have like fire these names at this time, and at Y time fire these two names, and at like Z time like fire these four names. And then we could also have a parameter, a like integer for the like amount of times that we're like supposed to loop through this entire array. I think that's the way that we might as well do it, because I think that's going to be the most like user friendly. It's not technically like the most memory friendly way to do it, because you're going to be like technically jumping around the memory a lot because you're nesting arrays, and that's not great. For this, it's probably fine to do. So yeah, let's do that. Let's make those. Do we need to have those in C++? I don't think we'll need to have those in C++ necessarily, would we? Is there a reason to have those in C++? I don't think so. Well, let's just make them in Blueprint, that's fine. So we make a struct, and that is canon names. And that's literally just an array of, I think it's names, right? Let's double, triple check. Yes, point names are F names. They should have been. Always good to double check. So that's just going to be some name variables in an array. And then we'll make a, and that's all that that's going to be. So I guess should add names. That's not typing. Why is that not typing? Should add names. And then we do a blueprint struct again. And this will be bullet pattern. And the way that we're going to populate that will be with a float delay after. We can also delay before. What makes more sense, doing a delay before or delay after? Probably delay after, right? It doesn't really matter what we call it, but and then names. But we don't even need to do that. I just realized we can just make this a name array in here anyway. We don't need to have that in two structs. I don't know why I thought we needed two structs for that. One struct will do just fine. Yeah, no, it's probably because we need like nested arrays. So I was thinking, okay, we need like two arrays, but we make an array in this struct, and then we make a array from this struct. So we're going to have like an array in an array. We don't have a struct in a struct. Okay, so that's all that we. So let's call it like canon names. So that's all that we're going to need here, I think. Let's go in Twinstick boss. Just remove everything. We're going to make a new task that's going to be based on the blueprint task base. State tree task boss fire pattern. It might also end up having multiple other tasks, but I want to make this task generally reusable. Okay, so when we enter the state, I think what we're going to do is, well, first and foremost, of course, make a variable for like bullet patterns, and that will be our like bullets pattern array that's going to be exposed, and then we have number of loops, which will be an integer also exposed. We might drive this through like a dynamic thing. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And maybe we have a like time modifier as well. That would be kind of fun, actually. Where possibly if the boss is at a certain like health value, we can set this time modifier to be something different, so that it starts like firing these quicker with more iterations. So it'll last longer and spit out more bullets. That might be a good way to do that. Maybe it won't be. I don't know. We'll see. Let's just take this one step at a time. So what we'll do is we add in a custom event, shoot next bullets. And on state answer, we just immediately shoot next bullets, right? So what we do is we also need a index tracker. And these two can both, well, all of those actually can just be normal singular variables again. Only thing that needs to be an array needs to be the bullet patterns. So what we do is we take our bullet patterns, we get a copy is fine, ref doesn't really matter. I'm going to be editing anything from it anyway. Add a certain index, and then we, I guess we also do need the like target actor for the context. That makes sense. BP Twinstick boss, and that's going to be context. Set socket. What did we call that thing again? Like, I'm just gonna look at it. Spawn point names. I am so descriptive in my code names. Set spawn. Is that not blueprint exposed? I mean, that would make sense to not be blueprint exposed. That's default only. Blueprint, read, and I guess write. We only really care about the writing part of this, but can't set it to write only, because that would be highly weird. Yeah, let's recompile real quick. Yeah, so that's, I think that's the way that we're gonna do it. That makes sense to me. So whenever we run that, we'll get the next like set of names and just set that array to being those exact values. Then when we run fire bullets, it will fire bullets using those names. Then we will delay for a certain amount of time and run the same function again. Well, then we'll increment the index. Then we'll delay for the given amount of time. And then we'll run the same function again if we are still within the array like index bounds. If we've reached the end of the array, we first reset back to 0 and increment like the amount of loops that we're supposed to do. And if we've also exceeded the amount of loops that we're trying to do, so we also need a separate like index for the amount of loops that we're doing. I'll add that in a moment. If we've exceeded that at the end of a loop, then we end the state as well. I think that makes sense to do that way. And I think effectively what we're going to do is that's just going to go into a waiting node, and then that waiting node is going to feed back into a parent state, and that parent state is just going to pick a child state at random, and the child states are all going to have their own like patterns. So I think that's the way that we're going to design this boss. And yeah, that's actually, I think that's it. I think that's all there is to it, which is easier said than done, obviously. But I've said it now, so now the only thing to do is to, well, do it. So let's, right? Set spawn point names. We can split the structure pin, we can set the names, and then we can fire. Just shoots bullet, but shoot bullet itself isn't exposed, I don't think, right? Yeah, shoot bullet isn't exposed, so we need to use the fire function, that's fine. And then we let's call this pattern index, and then we'll also make a loop index, because those are going to be kept track of separately. After we do that, we increment the pattern index. Then I guess we check if the pattern index is still less than the length of the array. So if the array has like 5 items in it, it'll do 0, then get incremented to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And at the end it'll get incremented, so yeah, this is what we need to do. It's always making sure off by 1 errors don't like fuck you, right? So as long as it's still at less than 5, we simply call the shoot next bullet after a delay. It's quite important. We delay first. Well, I guess we always delay first, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Let's always delay first. Because we don't want to change the pattern that we're getting. So we delay first and then update our pattern index so that this getting node doesn't change what it's getting for us. Then we check, hey, are we still within the bounds of the array? If length is less than, no, that's the other way around. If our index is less than the length, we shoot next bullet. Otherwise, we increment our loop and set our pattern index back to 0. Well, I guess we want to check if our loop index is still less than the number of loops that we're supposed to do. Of course, it's going to start at 0, so if we set the number of loops at 1, it's only going to do 1 of them, so this is actually intuitive that way. If it is no longer less than the number of loops, then we finish task. Otherwise, we set pattern index back to 0 and also go back to shooting bullets. So that should essentially be the entire task for our 90% of our boss behavior, I think. And funnily enough, I didn't put a lot of thought into this, so probably there is better solutions for this, but funnily enough, I do actually think that this is a decent solution, even if I were to scale up making multiple bosses, because this is just, you just make an array with timings and give it in the specific names that are socketed on the mesh. Obviously, if you make other boss fights, they might require specific animations for all that kind of stuff, which I don't have. But I think that this is a pretty quick and dirty implementation that works fairly well and would actually scale pretty decently too, maybe. Yeah, so let's try to see if this messes me up, because it might. What I am going to do for sure, though, is in my Twinstick boss, if I open that in the full blueprint editor, pretty please, this is not going to start logic automatically, because that would be a bad idea. What we're going to do instead is, first and foremost, we're going to go back into, where are you at? The levels. The drop frames are actually a little bit better. I've been dropping like 20% of frames in the last couple of streams. It's down to about 1% so far during this stream, so that's a lot better. Any recommendations for people starting out learning Unreal syntax in C++ if they have some previous knowledge in coding? Kind of depends on the language that you have experience in. I'm guessing it's something like C# or like Java or something like that, hopefully. Because those are fairly similar in a lot of ways. If you don't need to like learn any like normal coding stuff, and it's only like, oh, I don't know C++ and I need to like, get used to the syntax. Honestly, like ChatGPT helps a lot with that. There's so many times when I got started for like a year with C++, where I would go to ChatGPT to just ask, oh, how do you do like a for each loop in C++ again? Because in C# in Java, in those languages, you have a very easy like for each like keyword, right? And that makes you specifically a for each loop. In C++, a for each loop, if I can find an example somewhere in here, surely there is one. I just had one, I'm pretty sure. That's Twinstick player. We have a Twinstick enemy here. Let's just open up the thingy. Is written out like... This is still not what I'm looking for. Where is it? There we go. It's written out like this, right? So for variable type, variable name in array. Or like colon array. This is how you write out a for each loop in C++, which actually, like, once you get used to it, it's fairly simple, but I forgot like a million times. So, like, just using ChatGPT for figuring out like quick syntax is it's actually pretty good for that. It's not very good for like generating actual code for Unreal. It hallucinates a lot, and also when it doesn't hallucinate, sometimes it does like stupid stuff. That's ChatGPT for you. But for just syntax checking and just specifically like how do you like write this specific thing in C++, it's pretty good for that. And aside from that, like the syntax isn't actually that different. You're gonna need to like get used to like these things. If you have a decent IDE, there's a very good chance that it'll just auto-convert dots to arrows when you're working with pointers. And there's also like when you're trying to get something that is, yeah, sure. If you're trying to get something that is static, so like gameplay statics, these are all static functions. You use colon, right? That kind of stuff. These are fairly small things. If you're used to like C#, you would still just use a dot operator, which doesn't quite like work here. But most IDEs will. I know VS Code at least, and probably Writer. Like if I just do like mesh, let's just test this out, right? If I do mesh dots activate it, it changes it to an arrow because it says, hey, that's a pointer. If we're working with pointers, you obviously want to use an arrow, not a dot. So it auto converts for that. Acknowledge the C++, C#, but it's mostly just the Unreal syntax layers. Yeah, so that's just the nice thing about that is like Unreal doesn't. It requires a couple of like naming convention things, which again, ChatGPT is a little hit and miss with that. For those, I would just like look at Apic's documentation website for the most part. But like it does enforce things like actors class names starting with an A, for instance, right? So if you go here, there's actually just a separate header file. if we go to this, like it is an actor, so it's called a Twinstick enemy, which is child of a Twinstick pawn. It enforces that kind of stuff. There's like obviously a bunch of macros for like declaring things like this is a U function with like a parameter in it, or a specifier, I believe they call it. Yeah, specifiers. Like these macros are kind of stuff that you need to like learn about, but this is all fairly well documented on like Unreal's website, as well as just like having like online content. I have videos on like getting started with C++, but that is on a fairly like basic level. But aside from that, like there's not that much like Unreal specific stuff aside from a couple of naming convention things, like starting these things with an A, and then when it's not an actor but it is an object, it usually starts with a U, so it will be like U object, right? They'll start with a U. Structs usually start with an F, and those things are enforced. Unreal's gonna lose its mind when you don't do that. If I remove this A now, it's for some reason doesn't understand what to do with this anymore, which is a bit of a nightmare. But to a certain extent, having like GitHub Copilot also does work fairly well for that, because it does understand like those rules decently well. The question at that point is just, do you want to use like that AI autofill stuff or not? Because if you don't, it's going to require a little bit more like tapping out and going to look things up. Either way, what was I going to do? I was going to go in and go into a 06 puzzle, which also I restarted the editor, that's why it's gone. Let's reload. There we go. Let's, I guess we don't even need to add this to the sequence, to be honest with you. Let's just add in this thing here, and then add in a trigger box. Check the documentation. I keep reaching certain bottlenecks or the working within the confines of blueprints where specific things I need to do. I mean, personally, I don't find that that happens a lot to me, but like if you have some specific examples, I might be able to like steer you in some direction. For example, I'm trying to make a dynamic setting system, but I need a variable template for the info that would populate the settings option. Yeah, that's a good one. That's probably something that I would just do in Blueprint, to be honest with you. So I'm not entirely like 100% sure. But I also like hate working on anything like user, like UI related. So like doing settings menus and that kind of stuff. I try to avoid that like the plague. I know that I do need to do them, but so that might be why I don't really have much for you there. But that just kind of seems like a thing that I would personally do in Blueprint. There's a couple of things that I generally do in Blueprint, which is like linear scripting stuff and UI, and to some extent AI. I need to like get into a habit to like make these tasks in C++ as well. still getting used to state tree to a certain extent. But yeah, UI I tend to like do in Blueprint because it's very like convenient being able to go back and forth between like the UI designer and the actual code at like the click of a button. So I probably would make that settings menu entirely in Blueprint personally. Not saying that that's necessarily a good idea to do that way. To be like 100% clear, this is not in the right streaming level. That's just the way that I would do it because I move selected active to the level. Because I like the convenience of having like those things next to each other. In the same way that I very much like being able to like use the material graph and not need to like write out a shader in like traditional code because it's such a visual thing and you get like pretty instant feedback on it all. All that to say is I don't really know how Unreal would deal with making your own template functions. Because that's effectively what it comes down to, right? I have no idea. It is a fantastic question, though. Something that I maybe at some point should look into, just to like have that information. Trying to avoid hard coding it in Blueprint. I mean that's fair. But essentially it's pulling info from a data asset, but because different settings have different variable types, there's no wildcard casting to types in Blueprint. So like window mode is an enum, graphics quality is an integer, vsync, bool, so it would be correlating to type. I think you can, but you need to make a macro to like allow wildcard inputs, and then at that point I'm not entirely sure how you would distinguish within that macro. I think if you like make a macro in Blueprint, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the best way to do it, but you can like make, it has a pre-existing like wildcard option for you, but at that point, like I don't know. Like you can just use this as like a for each. Well, it assumes that this is the execution pin. That's funny. I've done that before, but I don't think functions can have those though. Oh no, functions can also have wildcards apparently, but it just doesn't. Okay, that's weird. I've never. So that seems to be a bug. So maybe don't rely on that. But if you select it in a macro and then try to make a parameter on a function, it still sets it as wildcard. But you can't actually like add a wildcard usually to this. So don't rely on that for functions maybe. But for like macros, you should be able to do that. You would need to look into how to actually use these though. I guess you can try to like cast to like integer maybe. Is that a thing that you can do with a wildcard? I don't know if you can cast like those basic types with this. I guess you can just like convert them to certain stuff and see if they are like valid, maybe. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how you like would implement working with those, but and if you need those on a project-wide basis, you can just make like a macro library, right? So you can like blueprint, no, not in there actually. Blueprint macro library. It does need, well, it's not technically object-wide unless you make it in the basic object class, I guess. But not everything that is an object has access to the macros that you make in this library, which can have like wildcard pins. Which again, I don't know how you would actually use those because I never really looked at that. But I'm sure you can. If you are interested in seeing how those work, you can probably actually look at the for each loop, because that takes in a wildcard. And well, I guess it just doesn't. It literally doesn't do anything with them in this, so that doesn't really help. I guess it just like inputs and then outputs. I have an enum that I'm using to control the types. Okay, so you can just like have an enum that you give in as well, and then based on that enum, just like use a switch statement to use different like type conversions that it can do, I guess. So there you go. That would be the blueprint solution anyway. That doesn't really answer the C++ related issue. Because I just don't know. But yeah, if you also like send through an enum to begin with, that's your problem more or less solved, right? Hopefully. So, let's think. There's two more things that I need to do. I need to implement a checkpoint as well. I forgot about that last time. Still need to do that. And we need to get the state tree. And then start logic. And I guess the other actor needs to be... Let's just do a soft Twinstick player. Man, I love the fact that I added this node. It's so good. Yeah, I hope that you can get it figured out. I'm sure that there's a way in C++ to do it. I just don't know it. Like if Unreal just kind of like fucks with like normal ways to create a template function, I don't know what the way that Unreal wants you to do it is. There is a possibility that a template function that you create yourself just doesn't work well with the U function like specifiers to expose it to Blueprint. Because there are certain things that like do work as long as you stay within the confines of C++. Like if you have a struct, right? You can add in functions on structs as much as you like, because that's just like how C++ works. But the moment you say, hey, this struct is, or this function in this struct is a U function, because I want to be able to like access this as a function in Blueprint to do with this struct, it starts like to scream at you. And the way around that, I know for structs, would be to make a static function outside of the struct inside of a U class instead, that just takes in that type of struct as its like as a parameter, and that's how you can still like make functions that effectively like take in structs and do stuff with them and make them exposed to Blueprint, which is a really weird workaround. But there's a limitation there that U functions don't work inside of U structs. For reasons, I presume. So there could be something to that as well, where they just like freak out when they have to deal with like templated functions that are exposed to Blueprint. If you're not exposing to Blueprint and it's just like it's complaining at you even within the confines of C++, that makes it even more annoying and even less helpful from my end. Anyway, what I'm doing is I'm getting distracted, but I'm also making this boss fight slowly but surely. So Structured link to Fox is definitely something to consider, because there have been some cases where it would be nice to have those in Blueprint. Yeah, so the only workaround that I've found is to make static functions that exist outside of the struct itself, which is, like, once you know to do that, it's not that big of a deal, and you can still call them while pulling over the structs in Blueprint and all that kind of stuff. So it is essentially, it's workable, works fine, it's good. It's just kind of annoying to like have to like set it up in Blueprint or in C++, that way to use it in Blueprint. But yeah, now that we have this trigger volume starting off your logic, though, let's add in a child state, and that is attack, which is going to try to select a child at random for now. We might change that to utility at some point, but for now, just like attack all directions. In sequence. We're going to add in the Bossfight pattern, and this needs a different type of Twinstick boss. That should fix that. Number of loops, let's say that we wanted to have it 2. Time modifier, we are not actually using at this point, but we'll get back to that in a moment. And then the bullet pattern, so yeah, we have this delay after should be like 0.1 in this case, and then the cannon names, I guess we'll just number them. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest with you. But I guess we'll just call them cannon 1 through 16. Going from like the northmost clockwise around, I feel like that makes the most sense. So let's do that. Can we add multiple sockets to? Yes, we can. Okay. So cannon. I'm going to copy over the word cannon because I'm going to be writing this a lot. 1, 2, 3. I wish I had a shortcut for this. Do I? No, I don't. It might be something that I can set somewhere. But we're just gonna kind of like add a lot of them, and it's not that big a deal to add them one at a time like this. It's fine. We can deal with that. I accidentally opened the documentation. That's not what I wanted to do at all. So that's cannon 3, cannon 4, cannon 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I was actually pretty close to adding the proper 16 right away, without paying like any proper attention. So I'm impressed with myself. At 16 sockets. Now we're going to go into the top perspective. Ready, please. And we're going to move them. So cannon 1 will be there. Cannon 2 will be, you know, let's set this to snapping at like 10 units instead. Me and my fantastic ideas with are they the same now? No. With using this, doing this based on like socket names. That was fucking dumb. Oh, maybe not dumb. But it's certainly tedious now. There's always some sort of tedium to go with game development though, so I probably shouldn't complain too much. There is every chance that these are going to explode in this guy's own face, because I'm putting them too close to the actual like mesh. If that is the case, I will cry. Well, once they're in place, they're not that annoying to move around. It's mostly that I need to keep in mind that I'm not like putting them in the same... Exactly doing this. Right, so... Yeah, so now we have 1, and then 5, and then 9, and then, what would that be, 13? So 1, 5, 9, and 13 are the like plus sign, and then we have, I guess, like 3, 7, 12, 11, that's what I meant, and 14 for the diagonal, 15 for the diagonals, and then everything else is in between. I'm going to need to go back in here and reference this a lot, so might as well keep this asset open. You can't have a struct of a wildcard, can you? I don't think you can. I imagine not. Yeah, no. So that's not going to work. If you want to send through a wildcard and something else, they're going to need to be separate. Because I guess a wildcard isn't like actually a type. It's just Blueprint's version of like templating a function. Which is weird because you can't actually... Well, apparently you can, but you're clearly not supposed to use wildcard arguments on functions. I don't know why they're specifically available at macros and not at functions. But it probably will cause issues if you use them as functions. If Unreal doesn't really want you to use them. Unless, hold on, I have an idea. Is there another way to do this maybe? Just like as a point of curiosity. If I do a for each loop and I... Yeah, so that way you can still do wildcards. So it probably works fine in functions. As long as you have like a pin to hook up. It's really weird. There's some function or some like parameter types that Unreal just doesn't let you set in certain contexts. Like if I want to add in, I think it's like a world reference or something like that, right? A soft like UWorld variable. Just like doesn't have that, but if I like load level by object reference. This is a soft world soft object reference, right? World soft reference. There's a struct for it, but that's not the same. But I can still hook it up into here, and it does accept it, and I do use this in some places in my project, or at least I used to. I don't think I do anymore because it did not important right now. It does let you do that. It just doesn't let you make that as a parameter or like as a variable, which is kind of weird. Zach Spaceship 777. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, Unreal is just a little weird with deciding what it allows you to do sometimes, which can kind of be bothersome. I'm sure that there's reasons that I just don't know that they do that. Generally, I assume if you're unable to create something within a certain context in Blueprint is because it might be unstable. But there's a lot of ways like around that, and there's also like ways you can add like a delay into a function, and it's just not going to compile, right? So if I go in here, I copy that, I make a function, which obviously is just like a linear thing. It's just not going to allow me to do that. So there is like a step beyond that where it's like specifically saying, no, you actually may not do that. even if you try to like find a workaround, which yeah, obviously like latent nodes in a function aren't going to work. So going back to this is what we were actually doing. Canon 1, and we're going to just copy over the, you know what, can we just copy over this entire thing like this and add like to them like this. Somebody sending through like emojis in the chat. I didn't even know that was a thing. Huh, that's fun. Well, not like there's actually emojis in the chat. There's just like in my chat window, like the hearts and emoji smiles were popping up, which is kind of fun. Yeah, that. It's also kind of distracting, to be honest. But that's not anybody's fault, because I would get distracted by literally anything, as is evident by anybody who's ever been on one of these live streams. I get distracted like a puppy. Just considerably less cute. I guess I could just like keep going until I have 16 of them. I do kind of wish that these would expand automatically with their array expanded as well. It's a minor thing, but it's really tedious. Anyway, so in theory, once we do this thing, it should start shooting one at a time with 0.1 seconds between every shot, and then it will loop that entire sequence a given amount of times before it stops and goes back to root. We're gonna... Did I miss one? Canon 1. Fuck! I missed one very early on. Well, I guess what we can do is we can just move Canon 1 up here and then like start with Canon 16, because why not? So yeah, it does that entire pattern, which I can just expand back now and do like 4 loops of that. And once it is finished, I'm gonna set you to being in the waiting state, and waiting is literally just going to delay task for, let's say, 10 seconds for testing purposes, and then it's going to go back into the attack thing, and then when this thing finishes, it's going to go into waiting. That should be the first bit of the boss AI done. I don't know if I would call this particularly like advanced AI. The boss behavior. Let's call it the boss behavior, so I don't get like a big head about it. There's also still a lot of chances for this to go wrong and just straight up not work. But we did find out that I can just kind of like fly straight into the boss room. Oh yeah, this is not gonna work. No, this should work actually. I was thinking it doesn't have like the bullets. What the? Did I not give it? Hold on. Why is it rotating around? Because I did give it the... Oh no, I didn't. Oh, that makes a lot of sense now. Yeah, different state rate. So much hellos. Yeah, it's one of the things in here that I was testing last week that I haven't gotten rid of the print strings from. I think it's these guys printing like an hello every single time they fire something. Maybe not. Maybe it's the bullets. Every time a bullet gets fired. Yeah, I think that's it. Every time a bullet gets spawned, it prints hello. Which is Or every time one gets activated, rather, because they're pulled. I think. Am I just like looking over it? The bullet should be in here, I think. Maybe not. Easy way to find it is just to look up bullet pool. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not what I wanted to do at all. I wanted to click on this. Where is it? Oh, I literally did just look over it a billion times. Okay. When it overlaps with something, it prints hello. That makes sense. Yeah. Let's get rid of that. Okay, find an output log. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Or like the... Yeah, so it is the base bullet itself that was printing hello. There's also something here. Hold on. Well, if it works. The thing that kind of confuses me is how it was able to fire anything at all with that different state rate. Because I don't think it should be able to. Oh well. Probably should increase my base speed just for testing purposes. So yeah, this doesn't do anything at all. Then I activate your ass and then you will start... like instantly destroying the bullets. When they spawn in. But they do spawn in seemingly in a... Oh no. Yeah, so they do instantly like die, but they do spawn in like a predictable like cycle, I think. Only issue is that do they not get like their owner set or something like that? Begin overlap. If it's not equal to their owner, I guess they're not getting the owner set when they get activated. Is that true? Let's see. Bullet info, bullet info. Bullet owner is this, but this is the Twinstick pawn. So yes, it should actually do that. I guess it might be overlapping with the floor. No, because it is doing a soft check for it being an actual like Twinstick character. No, because it also no, it is doing that. It's overlapping with the floor, I think. Maybe. Most definitely, actually, because if I go in here, all of these, I'm doing these from the top. If I go to perspective, they're all very low down. Can I just select all of these at the same time and move them up to a reasonable amount and then have them? Nope. Oh, of course I couldn't. Relative location, let's say 300. 270. 270 it is. This should work though, right? There we go. Yeah, so it was just colliding with the floor. Ideally, with this whole stuff, maybe I should just give the floor no collision because everything is floating anyway. So there's no reason for the floor to have collision. But that's a little too late to like realize that now as an ID. So screw me, I guess. Okay, let's see how these... ends up going now. Okay, you are hurting yourself, and it's shooting. Okay, so it's not shooting along the that makes sense because I'm not giving it in rotation, am I? Because it's just using it's just using its own forward vector. Oh no, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that at all. That's a fantastic question. Bullet, movement, velocity to add will be the forward vector. I guess instead of doing it as the forward vector, we can simply change this to being the mesh sockets, because that is a mesh socket rotation, right? We can do that. So we get mesh socket rotation. That doesn't. Oh, that needs to be a F rotator. That makes sense. Oh, but then okay, so can we just make that into a vector? So we get the rotation, we turn it into a vector to multiply it, and then we use it as a velocity. And with the velocity, it'll also set its rotation, I'm pretty sure. Maybe? Does it? Does it do that? Rotation follows velocity. It will now. Hopefully. So let's save all that and see if that... it'll probably mess some other stuff up somewhere, because that's just my luck. But yeah, otherwise it might need to make those cannons like separate meshes, like separate components, so that I can get their like forward vector and apply those. But then it would start to be like kind of annoying to pass in that vector into like shoot broad as well, because then it's only like arbitrary based on what class is executing this, how we're going to get that. So we would need to like write, well, it wouldn't be that big a deal actually, because it would need to be an array anyway. So it could just be like an overridable function. Yeah, no, that's. But I prefer not to have to do that, is the thing. So hopefully my idea as it is will work, and if it doesn't, I mean, I already have like 5 backup plans, so one of them surely will work. But I think this should do just fine, maybe with a couple of tweaks. I hate that it doesn't open the persistent level, dude. I also can kind of see why it doesn't open the persistent level, because it does take like 3 to 5 business days. There we are. So, bunch of blueprints that we have here. This dude. Let's go back into top perspective, because we've got a lot of shit to do with you. Let's go back into top perspective, as I said. Cannon 1. So what would be its like rotation? I'm guessing like one of these is going to be its forward, right? Because X is usually the forward vector. And I'm guessing this is the solid one, so this would be the positive. So yeah, that's just what we need to do, I think, is set this to all have the like solid red bar pointing in the right-ish direction. It's also still kind of weird that it it's damaging itself. Because it shouldn't be damaging the owner, and it is setting the owner. So something is going wrong there as well. Definitely something to like look into at some point. For now, I care more about the proper rotation first. And once we have that figured out, maybe we can... Hello? Thank you. This is not 100%, but... You know, one of them being solid and the other being not solid is just because it was overlapping with something already. So half of these are probably still going to be messed up. I'm going to be like firing right inward. So that's going to be fun. Having these as separate meshes with their own like forward vector probably would be better, but hey, now they're going to be grouped as one draw call, which is even better. Let's just get you, and your default movement speed is going to be like fucking 3,000. Because I really don't feel like dealing with this being super slow. Why is it still helloing so much? I don't know. Okay, that's a lot better. Still kinda slow though, to get all the way across. But it'll do. Okay, so that did jack shit. Did the actor not get passed in properly? No, it should. Wait, what was the arrow? Twinstick boss. Oh, at the end it was just pending kill or garbage because it got deleted. Yeah, no, that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is why it still is using what seems to be the forward vector. Okay, so maybe we just do need to add in either a rotator or a vector as a parameter for this thing, but that does require me to change a lot of the pre-existing code, and I don't want to do that. I just don't know why this doesn't work. Let's give this thing just a like metric fuck ton of HP so that we have a little bit longer to look at it as well. Remember when I thought that this was going to be finished today? Probably not. Question is if I'm going to finish this on Thursday or like in between streams at this point, but I'll figure it out. So yeah, it does. It doesn't even do them in the proper order necessarily. What the hell is like what the hell even is like the order of things here, right? Like it just does them seemingly kind of randomly, to be honest with you. So that doesn't even like add up either. Like it does this one, and then it did like this one, and then it did this one. Like that's not at all. I don't even know how that starts to make sense, you know? We have a delay of 0.1 second. We started 16, then we go to 1, then we go to 2. Like, that all should be in sequence. I could go in a weird direction that I didn't expect would be one thing, but it just going from like weird one to weird. You know what we're gonna do? You know what we are going to do? We are going to go in here and we're going to do this. Well, we might as well still do that. I want to, for each loop over this, every time I shoot. Just to print out the names of the things that are about to be shot through. The good old print string, it is literally... Well, I was going to say literally the most important thing. Breakpoints are also really important. Like, I wouldn't want to live without either. If I had to choose, like, gun to my head, I probably would live with only print strings before only breakpoints. I'd prefer to have both. So yeah, it does do them... in order, it seems. Properly. So that's good to know. Those do them fairly quickly. 0.1 second is definitely like too much. It's definitely too fast. But it's doing them like one at a time. So it has to be something rotation related. But what? Two hills I will die on, print strings, and blueprint interfaces over casting. Third being event dispatches. I mean, blueprint interface over casting is... generally speaking, yes, but it's also... it gets shared around as... like as gospel, without like proper context around it, which means that people like avoid casting at all times when that's like not always necessary. So like I have a little bit of an issue with the idea of always using blueprint interfaces over using a cast. Because I've so often seen people suggest like alternatives to a cast, which just becomes a cast with extra steps. At which point you're like wasting your time setting up a blueprint interface that still creates a hard reference. So you're not actually gaining anything in that case. Like I think oftentimes blueprint interfaces, not blueprint interfaces are overrated, but I think that casting is over avoided, personally. It's also, for a lot of beginners, it's over relied on, which is obviously a memory nightmare. You don't want to over rely on it, but I feel like most of the Unreal like developer community that I see like overcommits into the other direction, and a decent portion of those that do tend to like not understand why they're doing it, and as such don't actually like gain anything out of it. But as like a like code architecture statement in general, like making your code flexible by not like hard limiting it to like casting to a certain class, but instead making an interface which can do whatever the fuck it needs to do, is obviously like a very good design pattern. So like that first and foremost. So yeah, why don't you work? So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna Twinstick bullet somewhere in here. Got it right over here. I'm just gonna kind of not let you die. Just to see what happens when I do this. Because I'm wondering if it's having trouble getting enough bullets from the pool that quickly. It shouldn't. I've got things that fire away. Oh my god! Oh, that's gonna be an issue, actually. Ooh, that's gonna be an issue. Let's do this quick. Yeah, it's already out of bullets. Okay. ID number 2. Begin play. We delay by 0.2 seconds, and then we deactivate. Oh, do we not have that in C++? But not no set bullet inactive. Okay. I was going to say, do we not have it in Blueprint, but we have to, because I'm dealing with overlap events in Blueprint, because C++ headache stuff. It's annoying because it's a delegate that you have to bind to, but you can only bind to it on begin. Well, you can bind to it wherever the fuck you want, but there's like, over the years, there's been like 3 different like signatures for that function, so looking it up always messes with me. It just doesn't do them in the right order, does it? And now it seems like we're out of bullets in the pool, which makes no sense because these should set themselves to inactive after a certain time. Huh. Would you mind checking out my game? I've uploaded a short trailer and gameplay video on my channel. It's my latest upload. Would appreciate your feedback. I mean, I can do that in a moment if I can figure this out and I don't forget. But I really should try to like figure out what the hell's going wrong here, because what the hell? Oh, it's because after begin play. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess we don't really have a event for that, do we? If you have a Twitch channel, I do. I haven't been using it because my streams don't seem like super stable to YouTube alone at the moment. I would like to dual stream to it. I did do that for a while, and then everything started like messing up on the YouTube side, and I'm a little bit afraid to like dual stream as a result of that. Like I've dropped about like 5% of the frames in this stream technically. Adding a Twitch stream to that seems like a bad idea, but maybe like starting next week I'll try it again just to see how it goes. All good like actual restreaming services are too expensive and or don't take PayPal. So I need to like locally restream everything, which is annoying because that means that I'm using double the bandwidth, which is not great. Yeah, so this is actually as long as it's not equal to get owner. So the owner is just not getting set properly then, right? Because like when we overlap with something, I want to print out the owner of whoever like shot it out just to see. Yeah, no, it is properly printing out the owners. So then why the hell? gonna do this slightly differently. We're gonna print this as a like compound string. So we'll say other actor name. That's not how that works. Other actor's name, and then dash 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 owner. Probably good to do this on 2 lines, but those should never allow to like say the same thing. So it might still be hitting something else. So in these cases, it's all hitting the like blockout thing. I don't really know how I'm going to conveniently make those other things shut up at the moment. I guess this is where the like GLS plugin that I did a like sponsored video for a while ago would come in handy. Being easily be able to filter on specific like actor outputs. I can just look back through the output logs for now. I don't have GLS installed on this like instance of Unreal. I'm not seeing... I don't think I'm seeing the boss stuff anywhere in here, right? So if I look at like boss... Twinstick boss, blockout box 115. Is that this one? That's 114. This is 115. So that makes sense. They're only destroying themselves once they hit that thing. But it's also that only like happened for like a handful of them, right? Oh no, it's just there was a lot of like other firing in between. Somehow something hit the Twinstick boss from the listener turrets? That's weird. Is there anything in the C++ class that I might just be overlooking? I don't think so. It's only got setboard active and setboard inactive, so yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, no, there's nothing here. I am a little bit confused. I also do think that for my own sanity, but also for the sake of having these dudes not spam the ever-living hell out of me, we're gonna go in here real quick, and on begin play we're also gonna like set a timer real quick. We'll do that every like 3 seconds. The initial start delay will be 1 second with like 0.2 seconds of variance, so that it doesn't do them all of them at the same time. Not that it really matters here, but we just do a can shoot. And we'll just set can should be equal to get player pawn. Distance between get location for this and then just like get location for self. Does that work? Might. If that's less than, let's say, 1500. That should help. Or it might crash. Who knows? After a couple of seconds, this should stop. I said after a couple of seconds, this should stop. But dude, I'm not within 1500 units of you. I am fairly certain. Why are they still shooting? Oh, does the listeners have a different begin play? I think it might. This is just a normal turret, but these listener turrets are technically maybe a different class. Yeah, it has its own begin play. I don't care about making this in a way that makes sense at this point. I just want this to work, so we'll just fucking can should create variable. That's really the only variable we need to create. Oh, we already have a can fire. Oh, there's one already. Okay, sure. There we go. Well, no, let's keep that separate. We just can fire and boolean can shoot. Because we're setting that can fire with other code and that would mess things up probably. So let's just, we do that. Not ideal, but at least it's not spamming me as much. So I can test this other stuff out, which is driving me insane. I don't know what's happening. So we have the cannons. Okay, what might be happening is when I'm overlapping with this trigger volume more than once, it might be messing with the AI. So, like when I start logic, when the logic is already running, surely it doesn't just run the behavior tree twice, right? Because that would be dumb if it did that. Kind of does seem like that might be what's going on. Window debugger, please. Okay, we're on road weights. We're on road attack. Doing this from the top is probably the easier way to do it. I'm going to put this on my other monitor real quick so that I can see what's going on at any given time. So root attack. So yeah, it's only doing a couple of them to begin with. I wonder why that is. I wonder why that is. I think 0.1 is too quick after each other anyway, so let's try to do 0.25 seconds in between. I don't think it's a speed thing, because I've got a pool of 500 bullets, and it should just be able to pretty quickly like get them from there and like pop them over and add them back in. So I don't think that that would be the cause, but I would be stupid to not give it a check, right? So now there should be a quarter second in between each one of them, which seems a little bit more reasonable. I mean, the speed is a lot more reasonable, which also makes it easier to like check out what's actually happening. I don't think it's actually firing from all of them, it's just... It still is firing them all in like the forward vector of the actor itself. Which makes no fucking sense, because why is it doing that? Unless the base bullet somehow does that, but I kind of doubt that. Yeah, no. Did I just not compile this? I'm gonna be so mad if it turns out that I just didn't compile this. I'm pretty sure I compiled this. I'm just gonna fucking live code patch this in. No changes detected. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Twinstick, enemy, I'm pretty sure it's in. No, it's in Twinstick. That's actually a very interesting question, because I did change some stuff. What happens when I shoot? Because I definitely like didn't change the orientations of these. Yeah, no, this still... No, that works. It's fucked. It's really kind of fucked with the speed. But if I'm not moving, it shoots it pretty well in the forward vector. If I have like any type of like input, it gets messed up. But yeah, those are, that makes sense. So either way, this is probably a bad way of handling it. So but then what are we going to do? It's indeed Twinstick born CPP. Okay, so I guess what we do is we still do use this, but we make a F rotator. Which we'll get from this, and then we bullet dot set actor rotation to that forward rotation, and then it will have a forward vector. We can use the bullet forward vector. Let's try that. In theory, this should... Yeah, so there's still something kind of messed up with the directionality for the inputs on my end. If I don't have any inputs, it is pretty good, but we'll figure that out later. What I care about most right now is making sure these still are being sent into the default direction, which is just, it acts up for this dude, right? What happens if I rotate this dude, actually? That's a really good question. Does it start shooting them in that direction? I think it should, because it is just shooting them in the actors forward direction, which makes no sense because I'm at no point even getting that anymore. Unless I am. I'm not aware. Which is possible. Yeah, so it is just shooting them in the forward direction. Is that because of the bullet pool? The bullet pool might be doing that. Hold on, the bullet pool might be doing that. I think the bullet pool might be doing that. No, because that's just getting it. I did actually set this up in a way that makes sense for once. This is just getting you a pointer to that object. And Twinstick enemy doesn't like add anything onto shoot bullet. Doesn't change anything. So shoot bullet is in the Twinstick pawn, so it only does this. Oh, the rate of fire thing is also maybe messing it up. That's fair. Well, not the directionality, but it's shooting every cannon. We'll just set the bullets that this thing uses to rate of fire 0. That's that's not a big deal. Okay, before we do anything else, let's do that just to eliminate one potential problem. Because it is using the basic enemy bullets. Let's duplicate this and call this basic boss bullets. And we're going to set the rate of fire for this to be like 0.01. I think setting it to actually 0 caused us problems in the past, so we're going to do it with this. And then in the world, we tell it to use basic boss bullet. And let's see if it actually sends out all 16 bullets now. Or if it still is skipping, because I think the skipping is probably due to the rate of fire like baked in again within that function, because I didn't think like ahead on this at all. But yeah, now that we have that problem solved, it is actually firing from all of them in sequence. So that much works. It's just the rotation that now like messes itself up, and it still is colliding. I guess it's technically colliding with the mesh and not the collider in some cases, maybe, is what's happening. If nothing else, the sequencing of the cannons works. It's just the rotation that's utterly fucked. And I don't know why it's still using the actors forward vector, because I don't think I'm using that at any points. Velocity to add is the forward vector, which we get from the bullets forward vector. We set the bullets rotation. I guess we give it the actor rotation. So we set bullet active and then we update its rotation. So it might be getting messed up with that. So what if we switch this around? let's give that a shot. These are the kind of things where I'm very happy that we do have like live coding, because I'm not adding anything major. I'm just like moving a couple of lines of code around. Having to recompile the engine every time to do that would be a massive pain. So let's see if my problems are solved. No! What the fuck, dude? Why? Why are you like this? Is it to do with the fact that I set this rotation follows velocity? You're making progress on the boss? No, not really. For some fucking reason, it's firing all of the bullets in its own forward vector. Instead of the rotation that I give them through the sockets. And I don't know why, because I am not at all using the forward vector in my code anymore. But it still seems to be using it. And it's really weird. Someone who formerly used Unity, yeah, I feel that pain. I mean, Unity just like recompiles the scripts, right? Like Unreal recompiles the entire fucking engine. There's a lot of binaries that don't like need to be recompiled, so it's effectively just the things that you changed. But like having to restart the there is actually something to these rotations now, which is weird. Something is setting the velocity to that, and it's really fucking with me. But it's more like having to reopen the editor, which is really annoying. But also, like, the compile times are just annoying if you have like a lot of things to compile. There's more annoying things about Unity that I could go off on if I wanted to. I guess I don't need to do this again. Yeah, the sockets are on the mesh. And this gets you the rotation in world space. And it's not even like it's like zeroing out and it's getting like a zero rotator here or anything. Because then it would always shoot them in the same direction no matter how the actor is rotated. But if I rotate the actor, it actually starts shooting them in a different orientation as well. Meaning that it is actually like actively using the spawning actor's forward vector, and I don't understand why. Because we get a forward rotation, which is mesh get socket rotation for the spawn point name. We know that the spawn point name actually works because we're getting its location. Yeah, but that's the thing. I'm 99% sure that it's not failing to get this rotation. Because if it was just failing to get the rotation, it would just always go in one direction no matter what the orientation of the actor is. The like the boss rotation, its forward vector is always the direction that they shoot in. So their direction is getting set. Just not by this code, which is messing with me. Wait, should you be getting the forward vector of the bullet and not the socket? Yeah, so what we do here is we set bullet active, which takes in a bullet info, a spawn point, and a forward rotation. And when it does that, it sets that actor's rotation to the rotation that we give in, as well as the location to the location that we give in, right? So this is just like its spawn transform minus scale, because I don't use scale. I guess we can check in here if somehow I'm using... We are using get actor forward vector on the bullet itself, that was, right? But we're doing that after setting its rotation. I guess we don't technically need to do this to begin with then, eh? Because we have the forward vector. We have movement, velocity. Oh, we're adding the velocity from the player to it. That's the thing that I did want to do, that's right. But that might be messing with this for some reason now. Let's comment this out just to troubleshoot this for the time being. And let's just focus on everything going on in here. Because this is the bullet, and the bullet is getting set to I think everything here makes sense. Just gonna triple check whether or not I'm getting the sockets rotation. Mesh, get socket rotation, spawn point name. Definitely getting that. And again, spawn point name is a valid thing because we are getting that for like the location. So maybe it's just that other code that was messing with it somehow, because it is, oh, it might have actually been, messing with it, because what we were doing is we were getting our bullet velocity plus equal velocity to add included that. Yeah, that might have actually been it. I swear at some point I will learn to finish my sentences. That day is not today. But let's see. There we fucking go. It still is colliding with itself, which it shouldn't do. But it's shooting them in the right direction now. More or less. So at this point, what I have to do is I just get this, and we just move all of these out a little bit so that they are far enough away that they don't collide with themselves. It shouldn't trigger on colliding with itself. It does, and this one is 180 degrees the wrong way around. Or the other ones were 180 degrees the wrong way around. I hope that I got this one right. Wait, what? Oh yeah, no, these were definitely the wrong way around. Hold on. Because that red arrow definitely needs to be pointing outward. I am like 99% sure of that. Yeah. So that does mean that now my like player's velocity doesn't influence how quickly these things are going anymore. It did do that before. It would take the player's velocity and add it to the velocity from the bullet. But I guess what we'll do instead is we'll get the bullet's velocity and add the player's velocity to it instead of what we were doing before, which now I said that out loud, I don't know why that isn't what we were doing to begin with, because that seems like it makes a fuck ton more sense. So why wasn't I doing that to begin with? I don't know. Because I'm stupid. Okay, so now all of these are offset a little bit more. Yeah, so that's the issue, right? Is I was adding the forward vector of the bullet while it was already rotated. So because I was doing that plus equal. So what I probably need to do is, instead of like getting this velocity to add stuff, all that I need to do is I need to get this velocity from the bullet movement, and all that I need to do at that point is like add the velocity. Like this is what I need to do. I don't know why I had all those other lines of code, because this is all there is to it. Increase the velocity of the bullet by the velocity of the player. That's it. I don't know. Like, that line of code is simpler to begin with. So I don't know why that wasn't the way I did it to begin with. But this should... Okay, so yeah, that's still kind of fucked. Oh, no, that's actually... No, that makes sense, because now it's using the orientation of those... We'll get back to that in a moment. I feel like there's still a couple of things that are a little fucked about that, but... for now... It's only this cannon that still needs to be adjusted a little bit. Which is a fantastic question. Which one is that? I think it is... This is the proper orientation. So it would be... 14? Question mark? I think. 15. I think it was this one, 15. And then while we're at it, I think the issue that I'm facing with the other ones, and all the like drones are going to have the same issue as well here, so I might as well like immediately get to it, is that these sockets are not rotated like at all in the right direction. Yeah, so these are rotated up. They need to be rotated 90 degrees so that they're facing away. So that's actually working as intended. Just had the wrong socket rotations. Quick unrelated question. If I want to use an exponential curve for experience levels, do I put the XP on the X or the Y of the curve? So if you have... I'll just try to like quickly find a curve asset. That's not what that is. Curve. I'll just use this pre-existing curve that the engine makes. You would probably have your levels in the Y and your experience in the X. So as you sample higher levels, the experience would increase. Effectively, either one would work, I think. But when you sample curves, I believe... No, you might do it the other way around, actually. Because I think when you sample curves, you give in the X. So maybe you should just not listen to what I say. Get from, like, float from curve. I don't know what that function is called. Get runtime float curve value. No, that might be it. Yeah, so I think this is actually a function that kind of does that, right? No, because this is a... I'm going to figure this out for you. Hold on. Curve float. There we go. So, get float value. You give in the in time. And the in time is the X. And if this would be the level... your levels would be on the X, on the horizontal axis. So it kind of depends on how you're designing, I suppose. But this is the value that that function takes in, and this is the value that it returns, I think. But realistically, what you more likely probably still would do is you would put in the amount of experience that you have and sample the level from it. So your like time your horizontal axis would be your experience, and then you give in, I have 90,000 experience, and then it would tell you, okay, so you are level 6.5, and you floor it, so you always round it down, so you are level 6. That's probably how you would do that, unless you want to like do it on a like level-centric basis, at which point it might make sense to like make this your level axis and then this your experience axis, but you might be able to also sample it the other way around. I'm not sure. Yeah, so it is going to depend on whether or not your experience or your levels are the central part of what you're trying to like interact with, I would say. But either way, you can probably make it work. I also probably should remove that variable that I made. What fucking class did I do that in even? This one. You probably can also like get time, right? You can get time range. I'm fairly certain that you can get time at value in C++, though. Because I did make, at some point, like I made a dynamic curve. So we can look at that real quick. Like custom curve, right? Where I have like these update keys, but I think you can also... a float curve, yeah, no, that makes sense. Get, yeah, you can get a key time, which doesn't take in a value, it takes in a key reference instead. So that's not quite what I was thinking about. But you can get your time range, you can get your value range. Yeah, I don't think you can actually get a time based on a value in these. So it doesn't work the other way around. So you actually like do... You actually should like plan out which way you're going to be sampling the curve. Otherwise you're going to run into some issues most likely. So yeah, I don't know if we did any like actual code changes for what we're working on right now. My plan is every time I upgrade something, it will cost more XP to spend on it. Basically, a level system. Yeah, so then probably every time you gain XP, you would just sample the curve to see, hey, am I at a different level yet? I guess. Maybe. Or if you have like a more like Souls-like leveling system, like my game, where you spend experience like as a resource or souls or whatever you want to call it, you probably would like give in the level and get back the corresponding XP that it takes to buy that level. So that's kind of like the split, I would say. Are you doing it in JRPG style where you gain experience and when you get to a certain amount of experience you go to a new level? In that case I would do experience on the X. If you're doing it in a Souls-like manner where you are spending the experience resource and you just need to check, hey, for this level, what amount of experience do I need to like spend as a resource? It probably makes more sense to do the levels on the X. Is what I just came up with. I don't know, but probably XP on the X if you like are doing a traditional like RPG progression thing. So yeah, this works again. Fantastic. And that works well. So it does actually like add my velocity to the velocity of the bullets, which makes it just feel a little bit more satisfying, a little bit more responsive. It'll be a form of currency, so Souls-like. So yeah, in that case, I probably would try to figure out how much XP the level up will cost you. Because if you are going to be spending experience, your experience doesn't like accumulate. It'll be a resource. So you're effectively like doing a check like you would do in a shop. Which is, I want to buy X, how much of Y do I need? That is how like it would work if you are spending experience to like buy a level up. If you are accumulating experience, you would ask the question, I have X experience. What does that, like, what is my Y level? But if it is a form of currency, like a Souls-like, the question is primarily about your level, and the experience will be the answer. So that's kind of the way to think about it, is how do I like formulate the question? That one is still screwing itself. So it might have been a different one after all. Which one could it have been? Is it that one? None of these seem like they are particularly close, are they? It's probably this one, actually. Yeah, it's probably this one. Cannon 2. In general, with programming, I find, and you'll hear more people say this, presumably aside from me, is just converting your problem to English before starting to like write code is actually like majorly helpful in a lot of scenarios. Like if you ask the like vibe coding crowd, like what is the next programming language, like those people will tell you it's English, which I mean, kind of, but vibe coding gives you really quite bad code still. And I think to a certain extent it often still will, because at that point you run into the issue that like there's a certain amount of like technical skill and knowledge about like how computers work and whatever in programming, of course. But 90% of what programming ends up being, once you have like a certain like base set of like technical knowledge, is being able to accurately describe the behavior that you want the computer to do. In other words, you need to be able to describe a problem or a solution. So, like, aside from knowing the syntax of how to write that out in the language that you're working in, like starting out thinking about describing the behavior that you want in English or whatever your native language might be. Like it's a whole pseudocoding thing, right? You get taught is before you start writing actual code, start writing the comments for your code. Say, I want to do X. What the fuck? For which I need to do Y. And also Z. And then you can start writing the actual like, lines of code that like do Y and Z and then like get you X. So writing it out in English first and then actually like going in and writing it in computer language is also like a fairly like common thing. Side effect to that is that you have well-commented code, which is very helpful. Coding is all about definition. I think English has too much interpretation to be the next coding language. I mean, it's not efficient. And that's the thing about coding. Is that at some point it does become about efficiency, of course. It's not efficient to use a lot of English words to describe what you want the computer to do. Like there's like the old programmer joke is like a person tells their partner to like go to the grocery store and get eggs, and if they have milk, bring 3. And then the programmer gets back home with 3 cartons of eggs, and they're like, "What the fuck? What's up?" Well, you told me if they have milk, get 3. So I got 3 cartons of eggs. Like that's the ambiguity that you have in English or most spoken language. That doesn't really exist in computer languages, obviously. So you would need to formulate that sentence in a very like watertight kind of way. At which point the like efficiency of just using your like natural speaking language quickly starts to degrade, because now you're thinking, how do I formulate my wants and desires to this computer in English in such a way that it does exactly what it wanted to do? And guess what? If you're doing that, you might as well just be writing code, because that takes out the middleman and makes it significantly less like text heavy as well. Because that's what you like end up with ChatGPT as well. If you like give it a prompt like, "Hey, I want you to do this," it's going to a certain extent have like an interpretation of that, which is like probably not exactly what you have in your mind. And you can iterate on that, obviously. But that iteration is needed to get it to the point where you want it to be. Even hallucination aside, which is another problem on top of that all. So yeah, it's still doing the thing though, isn't it? Why is it still doing the thing? It must be something to do with like the Z height, because it. If I rotate this, is it still the same corner that does it? That's an interesting idea. My spoken language has degraded to Gen Z lingo. That's not good. I'm self-aware and not willing to fix it. I mean, that sounds like a you problem. Does it still do it on this? It does! So what the fuck is the problem, man? There's something about like this specific point in the world that's like messed up. There's a camera here, but it's surely... Why is there a camera here? That's a fantastic question. It's part of the combat tutorial. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say... that's not the problem. But what is the problem? There's something weird about this specific corner. Like, what happens if I move this thing like just to a different location? At this point, I'm just trying. It's a skibbity problem. I mean, I would very much like to ban you now. Is the thing. I won't. But the temptation certainly is there. Quite strong. It just... What the fuck, man? Why does it do that? Why does it do that? That's weird. It's highly weird. There's nothing else here to overlap with. Wait, does it? Does it still print out what it overlaps with when... I just haven't been reading, which actually, thinking about it, I very much could just... I think I got rid of that, didn't I? BB base bullet. No, I didn't. Scroll all the way the fuck down. It's overlapping with box 114, which is... Why? Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because some of them will be hitting that now. Brain rot. Well, we were just talking about Gen Z lingo, so welcome to the chat. My brain is rolling out of my fucking mind now, because what the hell's going on with like any of this? It's kind of difficult to like figure out. I guess it's the one that just happens after that one. There's too much being printed at any given time to really see it. It's like box one, box. This one seems like it's all one out. Not gonna lie. No, it's just the box that's all the way over there, isn't it? Box like 9, box like 53 is probably. Where is box 53? That's a fantastic question. There's one here, and there's another one with the exact same name over there. Yeah, that makes sense that it would hit those eventually. I post brain rot for kids, so I'm a specialist. Someone's got to do it. Okay, so 113 would be this one. Trigger box. I mean, that, fair enough. This one is Twinstick. Okay, so it did overlap with Twinstick boss and it didn't have an owner. So that's weird. Does it do that? It does do that every single time at Cannon 7 or after Cannon 7. Because there's also after Cannon 7, so it's probably that one. So that one doesn't seem like it's getting set an owner for some reason. But why? Is my question. Is it possible that it's like getting pulled from the pool? Is it getting added back to the pool before it's properly finished? I don't think it can. Because when we set bullet inactive, we set everything to being like hidden again. It stops movement, it deactivates the bullet effect instantly. It adds it back in and then it spawns the Nagra bullet at location. So I guess there might be something where, but this would all be happening within one frame anyway, but the only thing that I can think of, but that wouldn't be consistent, surely. The only thing that I can think of is that it is getting added back to the pool and then instantly being grabbed and then executing this code. Which makes no sense, because then it still would be, no. I mean, this is probably good to have this way anyway, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to solve it. There's no way that's gonna solve it. But let's give it a shot. Yep, didn't solve it. It's still hitting nothing. What is it hitting nothing? Matter of fact, I'm gonna go back in now that this thing is paused real quick, and I'm gonna. It was this cannon, and now it's shoot it. Now all of them are doing fine. Rotate 10 degrees back. This one's fucked now. What the hell? How does that make sense? Now they're fine again. Except that one. So it probably wasn't fine, I was just not paying attention. Yeah, so it is consistently... But if I do 20 degrees of rotation, now it still is fucked. Why is it fucked? Dude! I am so messed up in the head. Now it does it properly! What the hell, dude? I mean, I guess it's not consistent now, but there still is something. I don't think the rotation actually had anything to do with it. I think, speaking of rotation, what the fuck? Hold on. Yeah, that fixes it. The issue is that the owner is not getting set properly. And I don't know why. Why would it not set the owner properly? Because that's just... It's literally in here, right? It's not actually literally in here. It is... Hold on. For spawn point names, if bullet that we get is valid, owner equals this Twinstick pawn. I guess we can add this to activate bullet instead as a parameter. I don't think that's gonna change anything, but fucking might as well. It's gonna be an actor pointer owner. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. I know. Just calm down for a moment while I find you and add it in here as well. Yeah, revision control, that's fine. Back to here. And then fucking the very first thing we do is we set owner to owner. Now there's going to be a couple of places where this is going to be socket name funky. No, because it is setting it to the right location in the world. So it's not the socket name that's the issue. And when I rotate it, it seems to kind of... I think the rotation thing might just be a coincidence. Because we did print out all those things, and it did seem like it sometimes wasn't getting assigned a proper owner. It was colliding with this character, with the spawn rather. And then when we tried to print out the name of its owner, it was blank. And I mean, I get what you're saying. We are checking somewhere in here. My brain is kind of like out of sugar. Like we are doing this like for loop over this, and we're like getting this. If it's not 0, I mean, if spawn point is 0, we continue. If we don't have a bullet pool manager, we return. Then we get the Twinstick bullet, and then if the bullet is true, we like did that stuff. But I guess we just let's try that. At this point, it's also worth properly recompiling the engine. I would think, because we've been live coding, and I don't think that would cause the issue, but it might do something weird with like object names or whatever, because sometimes it does do that with like variable names. Shouldn't change anything when you're comparing 2 pointers, to be 100% clear, but it seems like it. What the fuck? Okay. I'm going to recompile. And if this doesn't fix it, I don't know what to do. Oh, that makes sense. In owner. And then this also needs to be in owner. And this needs to be in owner as well. How the hell live coding didn't pick up on that is a miracle. Well, try. Yeah, definitely I'm going to do that, but that's not going to fix anything. But yeah, let's compile all this and just see if recompiling the entire thing fixes anything. And if not, I guess we just kind of leave it at that, and we mess around with it a little bit, and we hope that it fixes itself in the future, because that's how coding works, apparently. Okay, I'm not going to open up any of these assets yet, because there's a lot of assets that don't need to be open, to be honest with you. I'm just going to right away jump into it. Because it's just going to work now, right? We can just agree on that. It's just going to work. It's going to be alright. It's going to be fine. We're going to do this. We're going to come in here. And then it's going to... Wait, does it actually work? Oh, it actually does work. Well, I did not expect that. They're also flying over me. But that seems fixable. Because I think they're just a little, like, too high up. Okay, we'll just pull them down a little. The brain rot is super real. Well, Borg is not brain rot, that's just Twitch, but difference isn't that big between the two of those things. Yeah, so now they can actually hit me as well. So yeah, we can start programming in actual like patterns next time. I do want to like try to program in one quick pattern now that we have this working. Just to see if I like can reasonably do that. Honestly, it might be worth, because there's only one boss fight, making an enum for that as well, instead of doing it with names. Yeah, so now we can effectively just script out any sequence with like this struct, right? So if I just like duplicate this real quick and I say duplicate and I say fire cross sequence, we can just add in the canon names for, I forget. That's why I wanted to keep this thing open for reference purposes. So we have like canon like 1, 5, and then just add 4 every single time. So we do canon 1, and this is why maybe making this an enum would work a little bit better. But like 1, 5, 9, and would that be 13? And I'm just gonna kind of like copy that over and paste it back in. Oh, I did it the wrong way. Fuck. Well, let's do it again. Canon 1, 5, 9, and 13. And then we add in the next one, also add a quarter second. And that would be 2, 6, 9, no, 10, and 14. Add in one more. I think just setting the default value for this value to 0.25 is probably a pretty good bet to do, so maybe we'll do that in the future. Canon 7. So this is a little tedious to do, admittedly. I'm not going to put an excuse after that. This is just like quite tedious to do. But I do think that this is also like acceptable enough to do for right now. So let's loop this like 8 times. And it should now do one of those 2 patterns at random every time it does an attack. Okay. Very exciting. Progress on this level is ramping up. Yeah, so this level is almost done. Like, once we have this in place, we can just put in like the moving barriers that I want around the boss and program in a couple of patterns, and that's kind of it, to be honest with you. For alternating, you can get the socket and check if it is the socket is even odd, then alternate. That's actually a pretty good one. If I want to alternate between them, that's that would be an entirely like separate like task though. So at that point, like, is it worth making an entire separate task for that one thing? Well, I could also just like copy over the entire array and just change a couple of numbers real quick. Now that we have this set up. But yeah, so it does this like full rotation now, and it's going to be random, so it might do this again. So we might need to like wait a couple of like loops around. Yeah, so tedious, but you only have to do it once, so it's like not that bad for every ability. And there's gonna be like a couple of these. Yeah, so yeah, that works fairly well. It's not exactly like the pattern that I had in mind for that to look like that. I think the delay between every single shot should maybe be a little longer for that one, because it kind of feels like everything is just randomly shooting at the same time. But at that point, it's just going in and saying, well, actually, let's make this like 0.4 for all of these, right? So we can fairly easily fine-tune this now. So I think I was hoping that we would finish this boss today, but then like the directional shooting thing was messed up a lot. Or at least like finish a workable version of this boss today. But we did give ourselves like some pretty good tools to fairly quickly now develop this boss with. It should be moved to code me things. Or a blueprint. I mean, not really. It's like no real like good reason to do that. There's no real good reason to do this in Blueprint either, aside from the fact that I'm adding this with a delay, and I like... well, you can just, in C++, obviously set a timer and run, like, a function, or even a lambda, like, on a timer, which is a delay as well, but this is essentially... I'm pretty much using the state tree tasks at this point as gameplay abilities, while not implementing it with the gameplay ability system for this particular part of the game. So I think like this like pretty linear scripting out of like an ability is exactly what Blueprint is pretty good for. So like doing this in Blueprint I think is pretty much like fine to do. And Blueprint performance is pretty decent as is. And where it really starts to fall apart with Blueprint, and not even like that badly once you have a packaged game. A lot of the examples that you might see online of people like comparing Blueprints to C++ performance forget to test that in packaged shipping builds of a game. And they test it in the editor. And in the editor, Blueprint, specifically if you're like looping a lot, does absolutely like nuke your performance. It takes a lot. But once you like actually compile everything down, Blueprint is obviously not as fast as C++. Nothing is. Assembly. Well-written assembly is faster than C++. But it's pretty good. And for what we're doing here, like we're not even... like I'm doing a for each loop here, which I actually will like get rid of here because we don't need that anymore. But nothing that I'm doing here is like that like intense to begin with. We're like getting an array, setting an array, firing a C++ function, and doing a delay, incrementing an integer, doing a couple of bool checks, and then like looping back around. Like this is so simple. This is like perfect Blueprint example for like where this really shines. I like usually referring to like the gameplay ability system as a really good example of there's a lot of stuff that you do need to, well, a fair bit of stuff that you do need to set up in C++ for that, like your components, your attribute sets, like the very like fundamental basic stuff. You can like set up automatic clamping within C++ for all those with like pre and post attribute change events. But then once you get into Blueprint, that's where you generally like, you can make your abilities in C++, but that's where you generally like in Blueprint start making the like individual like ability blueprints that say, okay, ability enter, and then do this, and then do this, and then wait for this, and then do this, and then do this, and then wait for that. that's where Blueprint like really shined, and that's effectively on like a very small scale what this does as well. So yeah, that. Imagine not coding every game in assembly. I know, right? Like, why would you even use an engine? Isn't it like Roller Coaster Tycoon coded entirely in assembly or something like that? Is like that's the reason that it can have so many NPCs on screen on a game that was made in like 1992, maybe even earlier. It might be 1992. I want to look this up now. Is it 92? Roller Coaster Tycoon was released in 1999. I'm not gonna lie, it looks kind of shit for 1999. I thought it was early 90s, man. I guess PCs weren't like really a gaming thing in the late 90s yet, right? Like PCs were like actually worse than most, like than the PlayStation for gaming, maybe. So that's why it kind of looks like shit. Because comparing like Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 to your average PS1 game, I guess the issue isn't necessarily the graphics. I guess the issue is having a like insane amount of active objects on screen, right? Because you are like it's not visually rendering anything that impressive, but it still is doing a lot of like CPU stuff. And you probably didn't have a dedicated GPU in 1999. So probably the optimization came in with just like the sheer amount of stuff, I imagine. Which also explains why it kind of looks like shit compared to like even PS1 games. It's not that bad. Anyway, so yeah, we have the first two patterns done, more or less. We'll fine-tune them a little bit and add more patterns, but that's pretty much, I think, all that we're going to do for this boss. We're just gonna like throw like 10 patterns into here or something like that, and maybe make some like entry conditions to add certain patterns when you're below a certain amount of like HP or whatever. That could be kind of nice. Maybe we'll do something where we have a check for HP, which might set something like the loop modifiers or like a time modifier to something if we really want to like deal with that. But for now, yeah, we did some good stuff. It's been a pretty long stream, I believe, all things considered. It's so long that I dropped 20,000 frames, which has only been 5%, so that's a lot better than the last couple of streams. But yeah, it's been about 3 hours, so I'm going to head out of here. But yeah, largely I think we're just going to be like writing a fair few patterns on Thursday. And then I do think some of those patterns are going to be gated behind like an HP percentage check or something like that. And we might even do something where instead of just gating it behind that, we might change this to instead of trying to select at random, we select them weighted by utility, and then we write those utilities to for some of those to like favor a higher HP and some of them to favor lower HP. That might be interesting to do. I haven't really played too much with like writing your own like utility like picking stuff. I've like looked into it real quick for the tutorial series, but I didn't like actually dive really deep into it. So that might actually just be an interesting like experiment to do, to be honest with you. Yeah, so Thursday, hopefully this will actually be finished. For now, anybody participating in the Game Jam or wanting to just jump in last minute for the Game Jam, now that we have like less than a week left until the deadline, best of luck for that, and I will be back on Thursday losing my mind again, most likely, because that's what I do on here.